Sadistic Penguin Studios presents the At the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
And Tony Chalsa Burt.
I don't know this industry jargon, YP, MP, whatever, okay? All I know is that I cannot get a record contract. We cannot get a record contract unless I take these tapes.
It's almost time, so grab a drink, get your popcorn ready, and join the film discussion with two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Hello, and welcome to episode 14 of the At the Show podcast for season 4. 14 episodes already. That's pretty good so far. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tom Yumper Garcia, and I'm with my other co-host, Tony the Sugar Baggy, aka Chalsa, aka the Burt.
It's me. I'm here. I am all of those, all wrapped in one on this amazing Friday night, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, my friend. You know that when I was going through that little bit, it reminded me of Donnie Brasco when they're doing the typewriting scene and it shows all of Lefty's names, like Two Guns, Lefty Horse Cock, Lefty Horse, like just all the names that came out.
Maybe you could add a couple of those next week when we do the show. You could add some of them in the front. I wouldn't mind.
Maybe I will.
All right.
But very happy to be here. We got a film that's pretty much taken out its own cult status. It's only released 9 years ago with the new film Furiosa coming out. The Mad Max Fury Road film by George Miller. We're going to go into a little deep dive in that. But we're also going to have a special guest for today. One of our regulars, bringing back a segment of special delivery, Mailman Jack, which I actually am looking forward to that segment as well. Tone, so we have an action-packed show today, my man.
Let's get rolling.
Yes, sir. Let's go straight into what we usually go with what we've been watching this week.
That's me. And also, what were you just watching?
So what were you watching this week, Tone?
Ooh, I watched a couple movies. First up that I watched is a movie entitled California. It stars Juliette Lewis, David Duchovny, Brad Pitt, and it is, to me, the thing that I remember a lot in this movie is the fact that it's, how do I put it to you? When I used to record movies off of like cable, and I would have VHS and I'd have 3 movies like on a VHS cassette. I remember getting California pretty quickly, and the movie sticks with you. And I sat down and watched it. It is from 1993, which again, we know, and we've talked about plenty, what a classic time that is for movies. But pretty much a little bit of a quick backstory on the movie is pretty much a journalist. Duchovny is traveling across country to research serial killings, and unwillingly he has a carpool with a psychopath and his kind of crazy girlfriend, and it's kind of like a cross-country journey. But Brad Pitt's, it's kind of like if he got off the couch in True Romance, I kind of think of it, and got crazy is pretty much what California reminds me of. Have you ever seen California?
Yes, big fan of the film. It kind of gives me the Natural Born Killers vibe without the documentary kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really like it. I think it's one of Brad Pitt's films that he really doesn't get too much shine for. It's kind of like a hidden gem, even though it had acclaim. Also, David Duchovny, very, very good in it as well. Mulder from the X-Files.
Really, really good movie. Katie liked it too, so it was a win. She enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and she has been mimicking Brad Pitt's accent in the movie. So maybe next week at the tailgate, we can get her to do a little bit of Brad Pitt, California. But to move forward, Blue Steel. The reason I decided to watch this movie was because a little while ago, when Mailman Jack was on the television, on our show, he did this movie called Near Dark, which was directed by Catherine Bigelow. So I always like to go through then the person's catalog, and I've already seen this movie a long time ago, so I decided to watch Catherine Bigelow's next movie, Blue Steel, with an amazing Jamie Lee Curtis. Some really, really awesome also performances in the movie. Clancy Brown is in the movie. Nurse Ratched is in the movie. Just really, really awesome. But what I found to be really awesome about this movie is on our last show, me and you had a little conversation about a one Mr. Kevin Dunn. He appeared in the movie, made me smile because we talked about him, and then I watched this movie. But pretty off-hindered flick for she's a police officer pretty much, and she pretty much gets involved with the witness of a shooting, and he just is pretty much crazy. But really good movie if you have not checked it out, especially if you like gritty police type movies. And Jamie Lee Curtis is awesome in this movie.
I have not seen this movie, but you kind of caught my attention with the Jamie Lee Curtis and Catherine Bigelow. I also see that Clancy Brown is in, and Elizabeth Pena is in this as well.
Yes, which again, Katie just stares at me while I put this on. I'm going, Elizabeth Pena, La Bamba, Clancy Brown, man, he's so awesome. And I'm like, oh man, this is. And the movie actually is a movie that we've talked quite a lot. It's a movie that I know that you would enjoy because it's got that, you know what it's got a feel somewhere around Black Rain, a little bit gritty, which I know you like Black Rain. So and Jamie Lee Curtis, it's cool because it's like kind of a little bit after Trading Places, so it's a little bit different than the Jamie Lee Curtis of current. So it's awesome. I'd say check it out if you have.
Definitely will check it out. And also shout out to Sam Reeves. King Ass checks in from St. Louis. Hello from Busch Stadium. Max always seems to be mad. You should try therapy. Have a good show. Thanks, Sam. Hope you have fun, buddy. I hope the Sox actually pull out a victory for you today.
Please, please, please.
Yes. So Blue Steel, I'm definitely going to check it out. I did see Alien Covenant, and I actually liked that film, so I'll check out another recommendation of this one. I went back to my old originals, the ones I always go back to when I need to get stuff done and I have on as background noise, but I do glance over at certain scenes. And one of the first films I went back to was Kickboxer, which is the 1989 film with Jean-Claude Van Damme. I always remember this film being at the movie rental store, Masterpiece Video. The reason it sticks out to me all the time is because I remember walking in, and it was actually a different cover art than the one you have on the screen right now. And it was Van Damme with his hands wrapped, and it says the film that made Jean-Claude Van Damme a star. And I always look for it to be a star, so I had to rent it. It has Michael Kwasai in there, who is Van Damme's training buddy. Also, he plays a bad dude, Tung Po. It has Alex, I forget his name, Alex Rivera, I think his name is the guy who plays Eric Sloan. Was a real professional kickboxer who's actually undefeated. Dennis Alexio, I'm sorry, who's actually I think he lost 2 fights, and both of them were Don the Dragon Wilson. He's also in jail right now for tax fraud, which is pretty funny. But great action movie, very cheesy, but I like it a lot. It's got that Stan Bush music in it, a lot of Bloodsport vibes from it. I know they made remakes of it, and I have seen them. I know Van Damme's part of them. I prefer the original. Have you seen this one, Tone?
Oh, of course. I mean, it fits in with, you could play it back to back with Roadhouse at a drive-in if you could. I had a buddy that when I moved in 8th grade, and downstairs, I'll never forget walking up, and it was the collection of Van Damme collections, and it was like Kickboxer and and then The Quest later on. I mean, he just had them all. But this movie again is a classic Van Damme, man. Good pick.
Yeah, the Quest, the watered down version of Bloodsport.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then I went with another, familiar to my heart, a film that I throw on all the time again when I'm doing stuff, is the 1992 Gladiator, The Best Gladiator. If you haven't seen this film, it's based in Chicago. Although I do find it hilarious in the film when Ozzie Davis asked the main character of the movie, James Marshall, where's he from? North Side? He says, Bridgeport. And he goes, Bridgeport? You're in the wrong side of the town. And they're on the south side. So Bridgeport is a South Side neighborhood, so I don't understand why it was so far from where he was talking about, but that always cracked me up. Brian Dennehy's in this film, a really young Cuba Gooding Jr. You have, a young John Seda is in this film, who John Seda is actually a legit boxer. He was actually a Golden Glove boxer as Romano. He actually speaks Spanish in this film, which I always thought was hilarious because he doesn't speak any in Selena. See, my brother always laughed at that part that he doesn't speak any in Selena. You have Ozzie Davis, of course, in the film. It's just another one of those films that I really loved growing up. My dad's buddy, Casey Kasem, is in this film. He was a small time actor from Chicago that my dad knew growing up. Got John Hurd in this film. Robert Lagosha is in this film. Just a bunch of good characters, a good story around the underground boxing promotion that he gets tied up in. And it's kind of cool seeing that they're around the city of Chicago. I know you've seen this movie, Tone. What do you think about it?
Great, excellent, amazing. All those actors you mentioned are some of my favorites. Brian Dennehy, put him in anything, and I really, really enjoy it. But it's not better than the other Gladiator.
Oh, it definitely is.
Okay, well, let's move on. That's the thing about this show. I love, though, the idea that it could be. That's what I love, and I love that you said it. So that's what's great.
No, but that's what we watched this week. Let us know what you watched this week at the show pod, or at Lil Yumper, or at the Sugar Baggy, or at Hook Up on Music. He'll want to know what you watched as well. But with that, let's get into our guest here. Let's pull in our guest for his special segment. Let's get to Mailman Jack segment here. So welcoming to the show, Mailman Jack, the Lord of the Cavs, best Cavs on Twitter, and one of the nicest guys on Twitter. One of our favorite people. Mr. Jack, how you doing today?
I'm good. You guys are some of my favorite people too. I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure to have you on, my friend.
I know I probably drive you a little crazy when you ask me about this stuff, and then I throw you a curveball about. So what do you want to talk about?
What do you want to talk about?
No.
Talk about, Jack?
The best way of getting stuff done, man. We discussed it all out.
Like, you were doing that thing like where it said like get to know me, favorite authors, whatever, and then I'm thinking, I think you said Kurt Vonnegut, right?
Yep. So just a little backstory. One of our good friends, Fitzmagic on Twitter, put out a tweet that said, get to know the user behind the account, and it said favorite film, favorite author, and mine was Kurt Vonnegut. And Jack actually contacted me about his author, which is Elmore Leonard, which I thought was crazy. So for those who don't know, Elmore Leonard is like a prolific author. He's written several books that turn into movies. Just to name a few: 310 to Ioma, Tall T, which is basis for the Justified TV series, Stick, Joe Kidd, and 2 films we're gonna get to right in a little bit. But Jack, when did you first discover Elmore Leonard?
Probably, I think one of my favorite things to do is, I'm not a voracious reader. My wife's probably downstairs reading a book right now. She reads constantly. She's been known to read a book at baseball games. She just brings a book. Anyway, and I kind of got into reading books that were made into movies. And then I'm like, and this Elmore Leonard. And it's like, wow, this guy just cranks out, movie books and TV shows. And that's just kind of how it is. I think when what came out first, one of my mother's favorite movies is that Get Shorty movie, Elmore Leonard book. And then the 2 movies we're going to talk about, Jackie Brown and Out of Sight. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know if was probably more the movies came first, and then I just totally went into the books. And it was a happy, it's like, oh, okay. Because actually, I prefer to see the movie first and then read the book. Because a lot of times when you read the movie book first and then you see, read the book first and then you see the movie, you're like, oh, they left all that other stuff out, But it's just my weird thing. So I don't know. I think probably I could credit my love for Elmore Leonard to my wife, because she's a awesome reading teacher, and she got me reading a lot more than I used to. And one of her favorite things to say was, "I don't care what you're reading, as long as you're reading." And I'm like, "Graphic novels or books?" She's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. All right, I like movies too." And she's like, a lot of movies are based on books. And so anyway. And then I just like, I mean, like Stephen King books, I probably read a ton of those because of the movies. But then I'm like, you know what? Elmore Leonard's pretty cool too. The fact that he writes a lot of his books kind of have the same genre or the subject matter or whatever to them, but they're, I like them. So he's he's probably my favorite author.
Nice. So it's kind of cool that your wife got you into reading. My mother-in-law reads all the time. Like every time I see her, I always ask her what book she's reading. She reads a lot of murder mysteries. My mom the same way. My mom is like one of the biggest people that reads, and then she also listens to a lot of audiobooks. A lot of detective stories, which you Jenny too. Anything with autobiographies of musicians, Jenny, that's Jenny's big thing.
Right. I mean, hey, my wife, she'll admit it. A lot of the books she's reading are like romance novels. Mm-hmm. I can't match up to those washboard abs on those guys on those covers, but hey, you know what? It just keeps her. If she enjoys it, who cares? I watch way too much sports.
Can they match up to your calves though, Jack? That's the real question.
Yeah, well, that's hereditary. I have a great build in the knee down. That's about it. But Elmore Leonard's cool. Hell, his books are, and they're easy reads. I mean, I've tried to read more involved books, and they don't usually go very well. An Elmore Leonard book, it's a good vacation book, or I guess people call it beach book or whatever. Hey, and like I said, now, do you guys ever do that? Like, see a movie and then read the book after, or just because you found out, oh, it was based on a book?
I've done it both ways.
Right.
Where I read it after, and then I've read it before. Before usually has been a little more disappointing when I've seen the movie.
Exactly.
I remember specifically in one case, this movie, Michael Crichton, called Sphere. I read the book and it was really scary and it was going to be really good. And then I go to the movie theater and it's nothing like the book. And I'm mad because I'm screaming. It was the only time I've ever really done this. And I'm like, the book isn't like this. And then I go, maybe I shouldn't do this. I'm a movie guy more. So it's like.
And Jaws. I love the movie Jaws. I love the book too. But like, there's a lot more going on in that book with the characters than there were in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever. I mean, it might seem a little what's the word, basic or whatever, that I do
watered
this,
down.
but it's just my way. Right. And if it gets me reading more, so be it.
So be it.
We'll talk more at the end about an old graphic novel that I want made into a movie. Okay. I really need it made into a movie. But so like, yeah, Jake, like Elmore Leonard books, like, and then I think also too with my mother, she loved that movie Get Shorty, loved it. Okay. She might have had a really bad crush on John Travolta too, but she just loved it. Dennis Farina's in it, and I'm like, Mom, it's Elmore Leonard, and she's like, I'm good with the movie, and I'm like, okay.
I'm good with the movie. I like that.
But it's and just think about like it it gets you think this. So like we were talking about Out of Sight, and so anyway, I guess my special delivery for people is read some Elmore Leonard books and see the movies, because actually they're not. I think Elmore Leonard should have got a lot more credit in the Jackie Brown. Like, there's a lot of the same dialogue too. I mean,
Ooh, that's interesting.
I mean, like, it seems when you read like some books. Now, have your kids ever read the Harry Potter books?
My kid's like 8, so
No,
no, he hasn't either.
But like
But-
my sisters have read. I mean, like my sisters are really big into the Harry Potter series, so I'm
but like
familiar with
if
everything.
you look at them, if you line them all up,
Yeah.
they get longer every time.
Oh, yeah.
Like the first one looks like a little pamphlet, and then like the last book is
Not that
and
big.
it seems like Quentin Tarantino movies are the same way. Someone needs to tell him you need to
Shorten
edit
them up.
more, shorten those
Edit.
things up,
Edit.
tighten it up.
Dialogue.
But I think he's gotten so big that no one's allowed to tell him to do that anymore. But like, I love the fact that he made that Rum Punch into Jackie Brown, and in my mind, for some reason, I always think Out of Sight came out first, but it didn't. It was
So it actually, Jack, Out of Sight came out in 1998, and Jackie Brown came out in 97, but they were both being filmed at the same time.
right.
To the point, actually, Out of Sight was being filmed first, but wasn't released until later. But Jackie Brown, which was based off Rum Punch and directed by Tarantino, Michael Keaton, who's cast as the officer in the film,
Right.
didn't
Right.
yeah, he didn't want to take the role because he knew that Out of Sight was also making the film, based off the same book by Leonard, and he wanted to make sure he wants to see who they cast first after for that role, even though it was a minuscule role. They eventually allowed him to appear in that film as well to keep the continuity, even though it was two different studios that did a film, which I thought was pretty crazy. And that was worked out by Tarantino and say, hey, it's by the same author. Let's just have like a little bit of continuity between the two, which I thought was very interesting. So Jackie Brown, of course, we can start off with that one. It stars Pam Grier, Samuel Jackson, Robert Foster, Robert De Niro, Bridget Fonda, and of course Michael Keaton. A bunch of heavyweights in this film. Jack, tell everybody a little bit about Jackie Brown's like kind of plot.
Well, she's a stewardess, and she gets caught running money, or right.
Mhm.
And oh wow, I didn't really anyway, now I have some problems with the way Tarantino changed it with the book, but like a lot of it is the same. So Pam Grier's a stewardess, and she's running some illegal money on the side, and she gets caught, and then everything goes kind of haywire, and they want. Why don't you help me with this? Okay?
Yeah, okay. That's okay, Jack. So they want her to
I have ADD.
that's
No.
okay. It's okay.
And
Oh, good, Jack.
toward
this
the end
is-
of the day, my medication wears off. Anyway,
It's all good.
Help
So
me out.
Pam Grier is a stewardess who is running money, as Jack said. She gets caught by the feds basically, and they want her to set up the person she's running money for. Well, the person, Mordell, the person she's running money for, and the person she's running money for wants her to kind of dupe the authorities so he can make one last score for his retirement money. So she's kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place because she knows that if she stops running money, she's probably going to lose her job as a stewardess, and she's very old, and she feels old, and she feels like she can't start over again. So she's kind of, like I said, stuck with a rock and a hard place where she doesn't know what to do. So it kind of goes off that where she kind of not giving away the film, but she kind of figures things out as we go.
right.
which is so what were the issues that you had between the book and the film?
Um, I I feel like in the book, Pam Greer's character is portrayed more lovingly, and I feel like in the movie she was portrayed kind of in a sad way, you know, like, oh, I'm just in this down, and then does that make sense? I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
I
feel
mean,
like Elmore Leonard respected the character more in the book.
the book runs for me. The book runs a little bit more smoother than the movie. The movie's a little long. In the tooth, it's not my favorite Tarantino movie either. I think all the characters are there. I think Pam Grier's amazing. There's a brand new season on Amazon called Them Season 2. It's really scary, and she's on there playing a mother. Now she's in Mars Attacks. Love Pam Grier. Love the movie. I just think, me personally, compared to the book, it's the way they move things around. It doesn't move as smoothly compared to the book.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Now, I'm not saying it was both weren't good, and
Mhm.
like, I mean, he kind of took that book and then turned it into a black exploitation movie, like his ode to that, and which is cool. And I don't know. I enjoyed, and then like I was saying, I think you hear a lot of the same dialogue, just totally lifted from the book in Jackie Brown, and I just feel, I don't know. I almost feel I like Tarantino movies a lot. That one I like a lot, but I almost feel like he should have brought somebody in to help him out a little more. Sometimes I feel like Quentin Tarantino loves himself a little, Quentin Tarantino too much.
I could see
And
that.
it's cool that Samuel Jackson is in both movies. He has a really small part in and now Michael Keaton's in both, but he's the same character as Samuel Jackson. No, he's not. But it, you know,
There, there was a theater right over there by it used to be in Orland Park. It was right where like Dave and Buster's was and the Raising Cane's. It wasn't facing the street. It was right next to Toys R Us. It was like
oh
Toys R
yeah,
Us and
yeah,
then the theater. Pulp Fiction was a huge success, but we would always go to movies in River Oaks. Jackie Brown didn't come to River Oaks. We had to get driven all the way to Orland Park to that movie theater because that was the
really?
closest one to
Okay.
go see it. So that's what I remember the most about Jackie Brown, begging to be like, please, we're like 12, 13, please.
Oh, I mean,
Please.
I'm a little older than you, so as soon as
Only like
they
a
said
year, you
Pam
didn't write
Grier
your
was
life.
in it,
Yeah.
I was all in. You know, like, oh, Pam Grier, all right, let's go see this.
Pam Grier's great.
But like I said, I saw the movie first, read the book after, and then I was like, oh, this is a lot better, you know. And this dude, Elmore Leonard, I like him. And then like he Tarantino has a knack for like getting, which is not a bad thing, like stars that hadn't been around in a while and kind of revitalizing their careers. You know,
Yeah, he definitely did it in this film with Pam Grier. I mean, Pam Grier was like the blaxploitation films in the 70s. She was like the biggest star. You know,
exactly.
Foxy Brown, and it kind
Right.
of like rejuvenized her career. Uh Mars Attacks, I think was Mars Attacks before this, Tone?
No, it was after.
Okay, so yeah, so Mars Attacks came, and then she was in other films after that. I always remember Pam Grier from a great action movie. It's also based in Chicago, called Above the Law
Right.
with
Exactly.
Steven Seagal.
Classic. She's classic in that movie.
Yeah, but yeah, I do like the fact that Tarantino does,
He did it for Bruce Willis. You know, he
and did it for Travolta. Nobody wanted to work with Travolta until Pulp Fiction. Um, I love that thing about him. 96 it came out.
Actually, yeah, I was wrong. It's 1 year before Mars Attacks.
Yeah, and just like little things
Escape
like
from
that.
LA too, right next to Mars Attacks. John Carpenter, Escape from LA, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. She's in quite some things.
Mhm. One thing I thought was kind of cool about Jackie Brown, which I happened just to be watching a clip from it, and the judge in the film is Sid Haig,
Oh,
who, if you guys don't know, he's from The Devil's Rejects and from The House of a Thousand Corpses.
Are you sure you're pronouncing his name right?
Haig? Oh yeah, his last name is Haig. I met
No, I
him.
know. I'm just saying that
Oh,
just to make sure. I'm gonna do that every time you say a name from now on. That's the
good.
new thing.
Yeah. Sid Haig, awesome guy. Captain Spaulding, that's the character. But I thought that was pretty crazy that he was in the film. But you like you said, you didn't really agree with the way you liked the film, but it wasn't as what you thought it should have been due to
I liked
the
the
stuff in
film
the.
when I saw it. I liked the book a lot more after I read it, and I just felt like now I know you always say, oh, the book was so much better. I feel like the movie, just after I read the book, it could have did better, but you only got so much time, and you have a focus, and I almost feel like he could have made Jackie Brown out of any story, maybe, and he just felt like, I'm gonna make this story, you know.
Yeah, I think he wanted to put his own spin to it, but I've never read the book. What do you think, Tone? Like, in your opinion, you already said that you thought the book was ran smoother. Like, do you think Tarantino should have stuck with the original premise of the book instead of just putting his own spin on it for the movie?
I mean, I wish for me personally, it's like compared to bands and music. I wish he'd work quicker and he could have spun two movies. He could have made the movie with the book and then he could have made an actually different movie with Pam Grier, an exploitation movie that could have been really awesome and made them both 2 hours as opposed to this a little longer. That's what I would do, but I'm not Tarantino.
Somebody sometimes I think, I don't know, Quentin. What was that?
Well, I like a lot of his movies, but then some of them, like this or The Hateful Eight, I could never get into because it's really long. But then I like his other movies. It's preference.
Now? What's that other movie with Kurt Russell? Looks exactly like he did in the Tomahawk Bone or whatever.
That's it.
Tomahawk.
Hateful Eight. That's what I meant. That movie's really long.
Right, but no, there's the other movie with Kurt Russell with where he looked just like that, Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a ridiculous.
Now that was a better movie.
There was a lot better movie.
But anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not here to. I love Quentin Tarantino movies. I think I ventured into something I'm really not prepared to give a good explanation of. I just was like, I just like these books. I mean, sometimes now Out of Sight, I think I like the movie better. And I think I also like Get Shorty better as a movie than I did as a book. But I think it's also, I'm going to give Dennis Farina a lot of credit for that. Because when he came, both of those movies, in Out of Sight, when he had a very small part. He was Jennifer Lopez's dad. And when he comes on, it's just to use a bad term, the screen just lights up. But maybe I'm just a little biased toward Dennis Farina, as he's a local guy and whatever. But and now that movie, like, it just like George Clooney, just like, okay, let's go. And then who latched on to George Clooney pretty good after that? Tarantino did, and Jennifer Lopez, her star went crazy after that movie. And that's a really good one too. I mean, he was a bank robber and does something really stupid, and they end up getting intertwined and tied and locked in a trunk together. And I actually think, how do you now? I don't want to pronounce his name wrong. Steven Soderbergh.
Yep, you got it.
He did a much better job with the adaptation of the book than Tarantino did. But it is cool that they had and this was before they even started doing this, like in the MCU and stuff. They intertwined a character, and like you said, with two different movie companies, and they allowed them to do this. That's pretty freaking cool, with the Ray Nicolette character in Out of Sight, which was a relatively small part, and a much bigger part in Jackie Brown. So, and then
Yeah.
but the same thing. And it was Michael Keaton, which is really good too.
Great.
Well, I love Michael Keaton. This, like, Out of Sight, just looking at the cast, it's ridiculous. Like,
Right?
it's so star-studded. It's got Clooney, Jennifer Lopez, Ving Rhames, Don Cheadle's in it, Albert Brooks, Steve Zahn, Luis Guzman, Dennis Farina, as you mentioned, Isaiah Washington. You got Catherine Keener in there. Viola Davis is in there as an early role. Luis Guzman, I already said. Samuel
Luis
L.
Guzman's
Jackson.
awesome in it. Yeah, I mean, it's just Jennifer Lopez is the FBI agent, and now they also made like another thing with her in it too. Elmore Leonard's tentacles stretch so far out. I don't think he gets enough like credit. Do you? You just don't see his name pop up on stuff.
Yeah, I think he doesn't get as much credit in terms of films as he should. When people think of like films with books, I think they're trying to go with more. Right now, I think the thing is more more books that were based in real events. Like we just had the Osage movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, that just came out, and then you think about There Will Be Blood, about the time period pieces. Uh, those kind of films are kind of coming out. There's a book on Lincoln that kind of got inspired them to go to do the film. Stuff like that. I think is kind of like what's in right now. But looking at his line of work, like he has a bunch of and films that are like 310 to Yoma, and then you
Now
have Out of Sight.
that's another movie that I think they should have changed the title to that one, and it was totally marketed wrong because people hardly even heard of that movie.
And it was made twice. It was actually remade twice.
Right. I mean, whatever. I just feel like I don't know. I think in the next couple of years we need to see one of those lifetime Oscar achievement movies or awards or something with some special 2020 deep dive into Elmore Leonard. And
the dialogue in this movie, Out of Sight, is great. George Clooney says a couple lines actually 2 weeks ago. It's hilarious you picked this movie, Mailman Jack, because I was telling a coworker there's a line in this movie I love. Clooney goes up to, they're driving in the car and it's dark at night, and Steve Zahn's got his sunglasses on, and he says, if you don't take those sunglasses off your face right now, I'm going to throw you off the bridge with them still on your face. And then later he's in the jail cell and Cheadle and them are talking, and he looks up and he goes, can't you read the sign? It says be quiet, or he says shut the fuck up, and the sign says be quiet. I like witty dialogue. The movie is full of it. It was awesome that you picked this one.
Like I said, I probably have read most of these books when I've been on a vacation and I'm on like an airplane or something, and my wife looks at me like, you better not lose that library book. And I'm like, don't worry, I won't leave a library book in Mexico. It'll be okay. But I might have left the book in Mexico once, but it wasn't long.
So Jack, how did you think Out of Sight was cast? Like, did you think it was cast well? We already said that Jackie Brown was cast decently. What about this film? Was this film cast well?
I think this one was. I just think Soderbergh did a much better job at that one. I think it was cast really well. I do. Now Jennifer Lopez was really good in it, but I almost feel like she could have had a bigger part. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, like George, I think Soderbergh was really grooving on George, and they had a later relationship and made more movies together. But I really feel like it's okay for a guy to get a crush on another guy, It happens all the time. I think Soderbergh was really grooving on George when he was making that movie.
I mean, they
And
did
that's cool.
the Ocean series after this.
Exactly. But like, I just feel like Jennifer, she deserves a little more. But maybe that's, I don't know. But I
You ever
to
see
get
her
back to
in?
what
You
you were
ever see
saying,
her in
I think
U-Turn?
it was cast really well.
She's a good actress. She's got some good roles.
Oh, big time. Big time. This one, she was really good in it. I will say, in a little her football jersey and stuff, and it's just, she was really good. Yeah, and then like I said, I love Farina. I love him, and then of course they brought him back for Get Shorty too. And it's weird how like certain movies, maybe it's just the time period they're made in. Certain stars are really hot, but it just seems that like certain like, okay, we're making this movie. Get Farina on the phone. It's another Elmore Leonard, you know. Um,
Call him up.
but it was
Keep
cool.
playing the
Like
hits.
Mhm.
So all you gotta do is keep playing the hits. If it works, it works. You get the
If it
cast
works.
that helps out.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Like you guys, I really like how you guys take your deep dives into movies, and I'm gonna stick around and watch Mad Max Fury Road because my wife and I saw this at the show in LaGrange,
Good one.
and it was one of those movies we couldn't take our eyes off of it. And actually, at one point, we were just like, and she was like, "This is good, right? I'm really enjoying it," because she wasn't really into the whole genre yet of what was going on. But like, I'll tell you, that movie was, it totally grabbed you. The whole movie. I think I could have went to get up and go to the washroom at one point, and I just held it the whole movie, and then just ran out the credits. But it was so anyway. What were we talking about?
That's all good, Jack.
I just think I don't know. Elmore Leonard is pretty cool, and I think like we were, to go back to what we first started talking about when you were talking about, like, I could have said Stephen King, but like I felt like that was too easy of an answer. I really like Stephen King books because they make good movies, and I was like, you know what, freaking Elmore Leonard, and I think it was just funny because like I said, I was getting the books from the library then, and because it was I didn't have an iPad yet or anything, and I was just like, and there's a library really close to our house, and it was like the lady I think was like, "Oh, you're on another Elmore Leonard book?" I'm like, "Yeah, I like him a lot." And then I probably, when I moved a lot faster doing my routes, I had a lot more free time, and people would see me reading books like on my extended lunch, but behind the wheel of a postal truck. And I'm sure they saw many an Elmore Leonard book, like propped up on the steering wheel and then making it look like I was reading, but I might be asleep too. But that's a different story. They're like, "Oh, Rum Punch, Get Shorty. Oh, he's asleep." He had a little. No wonder. Tell him to get my mail. Whatever. Yeah, it was funny. This one guy that used to always, like, his route was like right next to mine, and they would, all our packages would be messed up, and he'd be like, "You got your book propped up on the steering wheel?" He's like, "Oh, you're actually reading it today." And I'm like, yeah, I didn't fall asleep yet.
You gotta get those naps in when you can, Jack.
You got, especially when you're not on your ADD meds and your mind is just spinning. You gotta rest your eyes. Anyway,
so Jack, that's all good. It's Jack. Before you go, you said that you love graphic novels, and there was a graphic novel you wanted to be made into a film. What was that graphic novel?
Look, I even got it right here. Superman versus Muhammad Ali.
Oh,
I want
like
this made into a movie. It's a very old. Now, I had this, and it was huge when it first came out. It was. I've had a couple versions of this, but this is like a movie where they have a boxing match, and it's on a planet without a yellow sun, so you can guess what happens. But it's just I always like. I probably read this minimum 30, 40 times. I don't know. But especially after they made the Muhammad Ali movie. And then now they're making, they make much better. Because this came out in the 70s, I think. But anyway, I just think now that they have such good, movies about comic strips, they should make this and have someone play Muhammad Ali, like not like a cartoon character, but like as real. They could either go campy on this, or they can go like full DC dark universe on it either. And I think I'd enjoy it either way.
Well, what you don't know, and I haven't even let Yumper know yet, is that At the Show is opening up production studios, Jack. And our first
Really?
movie, and what we're gonna do, kind of like Tarantino did with with Jackie Brown, is we're gonna take that and then take Gladiator from 1992 and make the boxing it like intertwined. So it's not gonna be like 92 Gladiator, but it's gonna kind of be like that. We're gonna get Brian Dennehy in it. He's already signed on. Is he still alive? Right?
No, he's dead.
Oh, darn, there we go. Well, first held up in production, right there. There it is, right there. But don't worry, we'll get somebody to get close to him.
It's completely AI.
There we go. We'll get AI.
I mean,
like Ghostbusters.
I don't know. I always think to myself, because this is I always take. I make a point of, when I pack my little bag when we go on vacation, I take a couple graphic novels, and Superman versus Muhammad Ali is in there a lot. It's just, something that I enjoy. And then I start thinking someone should make, because all right, so then I was also texting with you about Frank Miller books, which I love too. And this one has sort of been made into a movie. But like Frank Miller too. And
I like the song The Joker. Oh, that's
right.
Steve Miller. Wrong author. Sorry about that, Jack.
I mean, I don't read a lot, but I read enough. I don't know. But I don't know. I credit my wife a lot for getting me back into kind of reading. She, like I said, she's but there's no shame in sitting like grown man sitting there reading a comic book.
No,
None
sir.
at all.
It's all subjective what you like, man. What you like is what you like. As long as it's not hurting nobody, it doesn't matter. People like films. Great song, ELO. But people, like certain things, and people don't like other things. It's just about subjective, and that's all that should matter. That's why movies, people can, me and Tony can disagree on if we like a movie or dislike a movie, or vice. We can agree on it, but doesn't mean everybody else is going to agree with us. That's not what we're trying to do. We're just giving our take on film and our take on what we like. And you agree?
Right.
Awesome. If you don't, let us know and have that nice debate, because sometimes views can be changed on our end and your end too.
Did you guys see the review for the Jerry Seinfeld movie on Netflix?
God. The one about the bees?
No, the one about Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts.
No, I have not seen.
Richard Roper was not kind to it.
Yeah, I've heard things. I've heard some things.
I have not seen it.
I do want to. I am anxious to get to the movies to see that Fall Guy movie. At first I wasn't, and it's actually gotten some pretty good. They're saying it's not Citizen Kane or anything, but they're like, it's a good movie. Go see it. And actually, I'm happy that it's getting better reviews than I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks really interesting. My brother's gonna go see it. I think within the next couple. I think this next upcoming week he'll let me know. He's usually my tester on films.
Your brother is?
Yeah, because he has in Oklahoma when he's not when he's not busy, he goes to the theater a lot. He goes and sees everything. He has one of those passes, so he'll let me know, hey, this movie was really good, or he didn't like this movie, and like let me know what you think. So we kind of go back and forth, like kind of like the way me and you do, Tone, how we go back and forth on movies. With him, it's like my brother's the type of person that it could be a horrible movie, like horrible plot, horrible everything, but if he likes it, he'll like it. That's just the way it is, for
Sounds
him.
familiar to me.
Yeah. So but I'm kind of the same way with certain movies, but like that's why I like bouncing things off. Like, how was this? And he'll tell me, like, he'll give me his real, and then I'll see it and then we'll discuss it and see, and then it comes up like with content for the show or whatnot. But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to seeing that. I think Ryan Gosling's his star's on a rise right now. He did La La Land, I think kind of popped him off a little more, and then he did Barbie. Now he's doing
Right.
Fall Guy, and he's got talent. I love him in Gangster Squad. It's a film that doesn't get a lot of love, but
Great
I
movie.
liked him in that film.
He was probably had the best episode I've seen of Saturday Night Live in decades. A couple weeks ago.
Good episode.
And he was, yeah, he's good, and I was just glad to see that the movie. Like, I'm like, the Fall Guy, really?
The Nice Guys with Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
He's really good. If you've ever seen that.
So
Driver.
Next
Drive.
Next.
Drive.
It's supposed to rain one day next week because that'd be a good day to, like,
yeah,
call in.
Drivers with The Rock.
No, that's Faster.
Oh, that's fast. See, you got me. See, I got you on Drive, and you got me on Faster. Look at that.
Driven, I think, is with Stallone. I think we're getting off course. But Jack, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm sorry if
Oh no, Jack.
Jack, don't ever
if
apologize.
you get me on again, we're gonna talk about one of my wife's favorite. Like, you talk about turning on movies just as background noise, kind of to help you work. My wife kind of has rainy day movies where it's
nice.
kind of a rainy day and she's just feeling like whatever. She has her certain movies that she watches, and some of them I've seen them all a lot. She's seen them all a lot, but I think I want to talk to you guys about one of her favorite rainy day movies next time I'm on.
Yes, please.
I
think it'll be good.
Yeah, Jack, before you go, my man, don't ever feel bad. Like, I love your tangent. It makes me laugh. You're, like I said, you're like one of the nicest guys. So I talk to you all the time when we're at the games or when I see you. So we have conversations all the time. So don't worry about going off on tangents. That's what this whole show is about. It's a podcast to go off on tangents, my friend.
King of that. My mind finally caught up to things I should have talked about with Rum Punch and Jackie Brown, but it's time for you guys to do what you actually need to do. But yeah, Elmore Leonard, seek out his books and his movies. That's just my little thing this week. When you asked me on, I was just like, okay, yeah, Elmore Leonard. I dated a girl that before I met my wife who was way too into Kurt Vonnegut. And when you saw that just flashed in my mind when you wrote that. And I'm just like, oh, Kurt Vonnegut, son of.
I got really into him because of high school. One of our teachers there, he passed actually my sophomore year, but he was a big Vonnegut fan, and he got me onto Slaughterhouse-Five, and then I read Jailbird, and then I read Cat's Cradle, and all his books are all satire, and it a lot of it still relates till today. A lot of stuff that goes on today. So that's why I always was a big fan of him, and also he's in Back to School.
Yeah. Oh well, that was I think so. Like I said, it was this person I went out with before I met my wife. And then I think I showed her, I'm like, he's in a movie with Rodney Dangerfield. She got so pissed that I was right. And I was just like, no, he is. And we rented the movie or whatever. And she's like, you were right. This stupid freaking movie. And Kurt Vonnegut's in it. I'm like, but he's making fun of himself. It's cool. No, it isn't. And it's like, oh, we need to break up.
You could thank Kurt Vonnegut for you meeting your soulmate and your wife.
I know, right? I mean, I could help, Kurt. Well, there were some other things, but he helped. Yeah. A lot. Big time.
All
Thanks
right.
for-
Thanks for coming on, Jack. You can check out Jack at Mailman Jack on the Twitters. He will be on again for his special delivery segment. Thanks again, Jack, for coming on. We really appreciate you.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me on, guys. Both of you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take it easy, my man.
Take it easy.
I love Mailman Jack.
Legend. I mean,
Definitely a legend. Jack, I know I threw Jack on the spot when I was asking him to do the plot, and he got really nervous. But no, Jack is very passionate about what he does. Like, we talk music all the time. Music's his jam. But he's also a huge fan of movies. Near Dark, like he brought up Tony, that was actually a really, really good film. He talked to us about, one that's not heard a lot about. And then, Elmore Leonard, who we discussed today, another author that people have probably seen the movies and don't realize that was written by somebody. I always hear people think that Jackie Brown was a Quentin Tarantino idea when it really wasn't.
And also, I mean, Mailman Jack didn't mention this, but didn't Elmore Leonard write Shakes the Clown?
A classic.
No, I don't think
Jack
you're
movie.
but he could have. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, Martin Scorsese said it was the godfather of clown films, so he could have. But yeah, thanks again to Mailman Jack for coming on. I love his segment.
Great.
But Tone, we're gonna get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. We're gonna get into the 2015 film Mad Max Fury Road. It was one of the first it was actually the first Mad Max film released in 3D. It wasn't shot in 3D, it was actually converted after the film was made. But it was one of the first ones to be released. It was the first Mad Max to be released, and I believe in almost 30 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. You are correct. It was the last one was 85, and that one, as you stated.
Yeah, in 2015. It's by director George Miller. And we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty about the cast. But Tone, when was the first time you saw this film and your initial impressions of it?
Opening weekend, I saw this movie, and immediately blown away. I believe it was me, my dad, and I believe it was Katie was also with. And the movie is just an onslaught of action smorgasbord, and pretty much I'm shocked that and just before coming on, I saw the trailer for the brand new one, Furiosa. Just blown away that George Miller put this movie together to look this awesome, really.
Yeah, it's beautifully shot. A lot of the film is actually shot in a sequence, and it's shot with having this central character or the main character of the film or characters being in the center of the shot, which is what Miller instructed his cinematographer to do at all times. I think it's beautifully done. The transitions are really nice done. The scenery is even done, and it was shot in Australia. It's beautifully shot in terms of that way. A lot of the movie is actually practical effects. 90% of the film is practical effects and very little CGI. And I'll explain a little bit when we go through the breakdown of Miller's views on that. But yeah, I remember seeing this film with my buddy Johnny. He's my movie buddy. We go to see movies a lot. To be honest with you, I hadn't seen the previous Mad Max films before this. This actually got me into watching the other ones. I've heard of them, and I maybe seen clips in here and there if they're on like USA or TNT. But I never got into them. And just the whole look of this film, I love that he leaves a lot of characters open, meaning they're open to interpretation, what you think really happened to them. And he does that through all three films. With the first Mad Max with the toe cutter, and then he does it, in the second one with the what's the bad guy's name? I can see his face.
I know who you're talking.
The
about.
Ayatollah of rock and rolla. It's the name that Chris Jericho stole from. The Humongous.
Yes.
And even in the third one with the Thunderdome, and I just love the watch of those, the feeling of those films.
Tina Turner, great role.
Yes. I love like the way he sets up the story there. And this film, I remember seeing it like surround sound IMAX. It was awesome. I loved it. the first time I saw it, and I actually saw it another time in theater, which is like a rarity for me. Usually, after the first time I see it, I wait for it to come out in video, but I actually went back to see it because I liked it so much. Um, but that's the first time we saw Mad Max. Are you ready to get into this development of this film?
Let's do it.
Cool.
In my thoughts, I use the technique of positive visualization.
Awesome scene, man. Awesome scene.
Great scene.
So this film actually came into idea of George Miller, who directed the previous 3 Mad Max films. In 1987, he came up with this idea, Tony. He wanted to make another Mad Max film, but he couldn't come up with a plausible plot for the film. So since he was throwing the idea around, couldn't decide, he's like, well, maybe I should just move on from the character. Maybe it's done. And he did. So he was in line to adapt the Carl Sagan novel Contact for Warner Brothers. But Warner Brothers did the old switcheroo on him and hired Robert Zemeckis for it. And he actually sued them for breach of contract.
Really?
It wasn't until 1998 when he was going through this whole lawsuit that he finally had the plot for the film in his mind. He was walking across traffic and saw how traffic just moved like crazily, like in one line. It was just rapidly moving, and he's like, that would be a great plot line for a film. Mad Max always had chase scenes in it, but in this sense, Miller wanted the whole film to revolve around a chase, which I thought was pretty crazy to think about it, because in part 2, Humongous does chase him in the tanker. That's a good portion of the film, but in the film we're about to go into, it's all chase scenes, and that's what he wanted to do. In 1998, he finally came up with a plot, and then in 1999, he polished it off to build the conflict of the plot to be envisioning a story featured around violent marauders fighting not for oil or material goods, but for human beings. He storyboarded the idea before penning the script and hired the help of 5 artists in the regard to create roughly 3,500 perspective panels for the final project. That's a ton.
That
in this
is huge.
When the screenplay was written and characters were designed, the film entered pre-production into the 2000s. The original idea was to bring back Mel Gibson as a star. But this film was pretty much doomed from the beginning. The film also had Sigourney Weaver was set to star as the interpreter for Furiosa. Furiosa. And as Gibson has actually requested her to be in that role because he had done a film with her and he loved working with her. And George Miller, of course, was going by his big stars like request and said sure. The production was halted due to the September 11 attacks and the collapse of the American dollar, which kind of hurt not just the film industry but everything in America at the time. He then couldn't make the film because as time was dragging on, he was actually committed to another film that he actually made, which most people don't know, is Happy Feet. He was already signed up to make the film, and the digital studios wanted him to make it, so he didn't have time to go back to the original idea of the 4th Mad Max film, and he eventually had to make Happy Feet. So while this is going on, Mel Gibson has his breakdown and his tirade. I don't want to get into that, but look into around this time, Mel Gibson has his tirade about saying some stupid things, and he basically gets chastised in public. George Miller also feels that Mel Gibson's kind of aged out of the role in 2006 when he comes out of Happy Feet. So he decides, all right, let me think about this a little longer. In 2009, he then decides, I'm going to make this film, but we're going to make it inspired by Japanese anime. And he entrusted the actual designer of God of War 2, the video game, Corey Barlong, to actually help him bring this vision to life. He wanted to have it as a Japanese anime inspired with samurai and things like that that kind of feeling, but he wanted to bring it more to Western audiences. The film was set to release in 2011, due to it taking about 2 years for production to be done. But then Miller just was like, "You know what? I don't know if I wanna do anime. I wanna do live action." So he's going back and forth with what he wants to do, which I think is hilarious for a director, but it can relate to a lot of things that we do in life. Like, when we are really passionate about something, we kinda like, "Oh, should we do it this way or should we do it that way?"
Or
But
back. Yeah.
yeah, but seeing a creative genius in Miller with this kind of story going back and forth makes me laugh. Uh, so he decided to do a live action film in 2009 after first discussing an anime, and the studio was like, "Okay, we'll give it to you. Let's do it." And he's like, "Great. So you already have, there's nobody else that's going to direct Mad Max besides George Miller. It's his vision, and you have, he wrote the originals, he directed the originals, so they wanted to have him come back. So there's no choice, no other choice for director there. So the studio wanted him to pick his cast. And with the casting, there's some interesting stories here because originally Mel Gibson was cast, and then, as we said, he was replaced. But with him being replaced, everybody, and I mean everybody, was auditioning for this role. They had to fill Mel Gibson's shoes, and who better? It's an action film, a series, one of the best series there were in terms of action, from the '80s, and Mel Gibson had an iconic role, so everybody wanted that role. Michael Fassbender was considered, but was looked at as not a big star.
Ooh.
They kind of passed on him. Rana Kress, who is the casting director, said this in the book, Blood, Sweat, and Chrome: The Wild and True Story of Mad Max Fury Road by Kyle Buchanan, says, "For Max, we looked at Michael Fassbender, Jeremy Renner, Armie Hammer, and these are people we didn't cast. Joe Kinnaman didn't even have an American agent at the time. He was just out of Scandinavia." So those are the people they looked at. They looked at Sam Worthington because they believed somebody from Australia should be in the film, as well as Eric Bana. And another person that Miller actually really wanted for this film to be Max, as his new Max, was Heath Ledger.
Mm.
But unfortunately, Heath Ledger had passed after making The Dark Knight. It got so ridiculous, Tone, that Slim Shady was considered.
Woohoo! My name is.
Yes. Even though Miller will deny this, his casting director has said Slim Shady was connected to the film because George Miller loved 8 Mile so much that he's like, "Man, he would be a pretty good actor." I can't see Eminem being Mad Max, but it would have made me laugh if he was, and I probably would have watched the movie a lot more, more times just to laugh at it. Yes, he is, Brian.
Sadly. No
Nope.
Night's Tale 2.
Darn.
I know.
Though bigger names have been up for Max, Miller was intrigued by the up-and-coming actor Tom Hardy, a brooding, full-lipped Brit who had a career breakthrough playing the charismatic criminal in the 2008 film Bronson. Off that leading role, Hardy landed a supporting part in Christopher Nolan's then upcoming film Inception, as well as a place on the Fury Road casting sheet. So, reading through the research for this, they have always had an eye on Hardy. He was some person that Miller was really intrigued by, as it says here. His casting director was really intrigued by him, and they brought him in for a casting call. So he came in to read, and you know the person he read with?
No, who was it?
Kat Dennings.
What?
So Tom
Okay.
Hardy read with Kat Dennings. Tom Hardy, of course, playing the role of Max, and her for the role of Furiosa. They loved his performance. They said that when his audition was filmed, Miller watched it over several times. Right away, he said, "That's our Max." So he won the part right then and there. They offered it to him.
Why didn't Kat Dennings get it?
Well, we're gonna get into Furiosa here. For the role of Furiosa, Jessica Chastain tried out for it, and another person who's in a bunch of DC films and kind of got really big from not just that, but was also in the Fast and the Furious series, Gail Gadot, read for it and really impressed them with her audition. She was also tested for The Wives as well, due to her age. So Miller was kind of in a not a kind of a situation where what should he cast her in, because she wasn't as old, and he thought maybe she'd be better for the wives. But then he's like, oh, her casting, her audition for the role of Furiosa was really good. So she was kind of in the middle. Um, Miller and his casting director also were looking at this other person who had just come off a big Oscar film, Monster, and by the name of Charlize Theron. And they wanted to see if she was interested. And Theron would go on to say, listen, I grew up on all the Mad Max movies. They're very popular in South Africa. So that part of it for me was like, oh shit, yeah, I want to be in a Mad Max movie. Are you kidding me? I remember being 12 years old and my dad letting me watch it with him, and it was huge. I was raised on a farm in a country where I was kind of surrounded by violence. Watching the violence of Mad Max felt very versatile, very real, and very connected to my environment. I wasn't scared by it. I remember kind of being in awe of it. George came to LA. I had a meeting with him at lunch. He was absolutely lovely. And I said, oh my God, I'll do whatever I need to do. I really, really want to be part of this movie. And he said, okay. PJ Voten says, George cast her right there over lunch.
Ooh.
Charlize Theron couldn't believe it. She said, I literally couldn't believe he just cast me. George Miller went on to say, I knew behind the elegant facade, there was some real grit to that person. Even as she's sitting there having lunch with me, you understand that. And you see it in her work. She's the only person that was cast without auditioning. Gail Gadot would go on to say that she lost out. She was second place for Furiosa. And I mean, Charlize Theron must have put a real big, left a really big impression on George. And I mean, it's kind of, you could kind of see by her films and Monster, she's excellent. I think she was also
Devil's Advocate. She's great in The Devil's Advocate, even as
Yes.
Keanu's wife.
Yeah, she's really good in there too. She's also in Jackson's King Kong. Peter Jackson's King Kong, I believe, right?
Is he? Is she in that?
I believe so.
Atomic Blonde was good. She was awesome in that.
Oh, it's Naomi Watts. I'm wrong.
Yeah, I know. I didn't. Yeah,
I was getting mixed up there.
But Atomic Blonde, she's good in. I've always been a big, huge Charlize Theron fan. So as soon as I seen she was in the movie, I was, I was excited, and I think, in all indications, she did a good job. You ever see, real quick, Hancock?
Yes.
She's in that. She does a good job in that. I like movies where, this one, again, this is two of them that are under the radar. Or actually, we're going to name three of them real quick here. Legend of Bagger Vance. You ever see that?
Yep.
You ever see The Astronaut's Wife? It's him and her and Johnny Depp.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final one is Reindeer Games with Brad Pitt. Not Brad, Ben Affleck. But that you say to yourself, look at those movies she's been. I mean, she's in a lot. Why?
Yeah, she's also been in Men of Honor. She was Robert De Niro's wife in that film.
Classic movie right there.
Yeah. Definitely. Especially, she is a really good actress. She's also in Doctor Strange too. She's in the post-credit scene. She plays I don't know what her character's name is, but she plays a character that comes and gets him. But yeah, so she was cast as Furiosa. So we have our Furiosa, we have our Max, and then we have to find out who's playing the wives. Many were auditioned, including Margaret Robbie, Jennifer Lawrence, and even Rihanna. Rose Huntington Whitley was cast as the splendid Agrahard. Zoe Kravitz was cast as Toast. Riley Canal was cast as Capable. Abby Lee was cast as a Dag. Courtney Eaton was cast as Cheeto. And then we get to John Howard as the People Eater who runs Gastown. Richard Carter as a bullet farmer who runs the bullet farm. Iota as the Doof Coma. The guitarist who travels the Joe's convoy. We'll get to him in a little bit. Angus Sampson was cast as the organic mechanic. Jennifer Hagen was cast as Miss Giddy, who's the caretaker. Megan Gale was cast as a Valkyrie. Melissa Jaffer was cast as a keeper of seeds. Melita Jursic, Gillian Jones, Joy Smithers, Antoinette Kellerman, and Christina Koch was cast as a Volvalini. I think that's how you say it, right? Volvalini. The old women at the end, Volvalini. John Ills was cast as the Ace. And finally, we have Nicholas Hoult as Nux and Hugh Keys Brine as a Morton Joe. And also for your wrestling fans, Nathan Jones as Rictus Erectus. who is Joe's son. He's the one that says, I had a brother and he was perfect. But that is the cast of the Mad Max Fury Road. I know I threw a lot of names at you, but it's pretty interesting stories with how Furiosa and Max came to be cast. I thought that was really interesting. When doing research for this film, there's not a tons of like backstory in terms of how it was developed. It's because I think maybe it was left in like production hell for so long, and it took Miller such long to make it that there wasn't really that much dug up about it. The book that I mentioned earlier, Blood, Sweat, and Chrome: The Wild and True Story of Mad Max Fury Road, is actually a really good book. I've read it. Check it out. He goes into the author, Kyle Buchanan, goes to a lot of detailing like the back and history of what was going on, and he also dives in a little bit to the Theron and Hardy issues, which we'll get into in a little bit. But that's the film development. Like I said, not too much information. There's a little shorter one than usual. But what do you think about that, Tom?
I mean, for me personally, after I mean, those other movies were kind of, I could tell you little bits and pieces of some of those the three Mad Max before this one came out. So when this one came out, it kind of let me go back and be able to go back and kind of watch some of those other ones and actually, enjoy some of those earlier movies. But hearing the stories of the as you stated, the hell that it was had to sit in, definitely not what you would call it's when you're looking forward to a movie to put this out, and you have to George Miller going from, I was looking Happy Feet 2. Even before that, he was involved. He wrote the first Babe, but he directed Babe 2. But like to see those movies and then such a perfect movie, honestly, action movie like Fury Road. It's I love stories like this, and that's why I love doing the show, because even sitting here, I'm biting at the bit. Like right now, I'd meet you for an 11 o'clock show for Furiosa, the new movie, just talking about it right here, because it's exciting.
We definitely have to go see that and give our thoughts on it.
Definitely.
But you ready to break into some film breakdown?
Yes, let's do it.
See the arc? He starts down here. He ends up here. Where's my arc, Paulie?
The opening scene, we first see Max looking over a horizon with his car, and we kind of hear a narration by Tom Hardy. Now, this is the most spoken words that Max has in the film. In the film, he only speaks 58 lines, and most of them are spoken in this voiceover, which I thought was pretty crazy. This is also the first film that Max, as his last name, Rakatowski, if I'm saying that correctly, Tom. That's the first time he's credited with his last name, which I thought was pretty crazy. The girl who Max sees in his visions during this scene is commonly believed to be his daughter, is in fact Glory the child, who can be seen in the comic series. It can also be noted that she is being run down in the desert by a selection of vehicles, while Max's child was killed by a biker gang prior to the war. And the new Max backstory, Max lost his family when they were killed in the midst of chaos of a nuclear attack. So that's kind of going back and forth with the comics and this. But I think Miller kind of stood a little true to his old Mad Max films by, showing a little bit of, him having a troubled past, but not expanding upon it in this film. But just the opening scene I love, because when Max is standing there going through his dialogue, and we see the two-headed lizard come by him, and he just steps on it and eats it, then runs like a madman, like a bat out of hell. He gets chased, his car gets, he gets, captured by, the Morton Joe, followers. They when they try to brand him to where he runs away, and it's that one continuous shot of him running as
Mhm.
he's running through the tunnel. I think is awesome until he gets to the cave opening. With it's just crazy that there's doors in front of this opening that leads to nowhere. It gave me a lot of Indiana Jones feels when he goes out
Yeah.
the door, to see like a drop, and he just doesn't give a shit. He just jumps onto the hanging crane hook with his shackles on, and eventually gets captured, and then we see the opening title card. What'd you think of this whole sequence, Tom?
The movie, I remember leaving and, my dad, action from the word go, like the word go, as you stated, and the cinematography's gorgeous. Um, you know, uh, should have won that year for best cinematography. I mean, it looks really, really, really good. And the continuous shots, even hearing in the new one that's coming out, there's a 18-minute continuous shot that was filmed, and is not easy to do. So again, after Happy Feet, Babe, this good is really, to me, because I remember coming it out going, George Miller. I mean, at this point, I was really, really, really movie guy, and I was like, had he done anything since the last Mad Max? I mean, now you look back, I think he's done like Witches of Eastwick or something else too, but very awesome.
Yeah, it's kinda crazy. He's kinda like Mad Max's bread and butter. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
uh, after the opening scene, we cut to the introduction of Immortan Joe. Like I said, Immortan Joe was played by the same actor who played the toe cutter in the first Mad Max film, which I thought was really, really interesting and cool to kind of bring back somebody 30 years later for this film. Uh, Morton Joe is actually you don't see his face at first. You actually don't see his face without his mask on, but you see him getting prepared as they're throwing like baby powder on his sores. You see him as a very sored up, like disgusting, disfigured person. When they put the plastic coverings over his body with the six pack, and the medals, and then he gets the iconic breathing apparatus put to his face, with the pump in the back, which I think is pretty interesting. Just kind of not going, little segue to a role that Tom Hardy would play, previously in Bane, who was a
Oh,
character who
I thought you were
had
gonna say Capone. No,
no,
I'm just
no,
kidding.
God, Valhalla, I
I'm
hate that
just
movie.
kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
As Bane, but a person who used a breathing apparatus to help them breathe, and this character has the same thing. It's kinda crazy that he's involved with 2 films that have that in there, but Molten Joe, you see all the people around him, the weird looking characters around him. One of the characters I thought was really strange was, you see, like, a little character who's kinda really small in a wheelchair, that he's one of the ones that look up out the telescope. His name was Quentin Keenan, and he played the character Corpus Colossus, which I thought was a excellent name because his character is so small.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
in real life. I'm not gonna pronounce his condition because I'm horrible at pronouncing names, but he has the same condition that Samuel L. Jackson's character was born with in uh, Unbreakable, which is why no prosthetics or puppets or special effects were used for him. The only alterations to him were just makeup, and I think it's awesome that George Miller had him in the film. I
Yeah.
I don't think he was showcasing him as a schizo. I just think it's like, I mean, he got work in the film.
Yeah.
He's apparently, from what everything I read, he loved it. He loved being on the film, and I think that's pretty cool. I do think it's kinda interesting that he put it in there, but it does kinda fit with the times of, they're in a wasteland. We don't know
Yeah.
what happened, there's destruction everywhere, and that's kinda like the way the films are based off. Uh, I also love the introduction of Furiosa and how she's going to bring the gasoline to the Bullet Farm to get bullets, and, she's supposed to come back with other goods that they do, and they're bringing war parties with them, which we'll get to, But that whole opening scene of him speaking and opening up the water gates to his people that need water, what'd you think about that whole introduction scene of Morton Joe?
Again, Morton Joe's the man. Immediately when they were making the new one, I had to see if he's in it, and he is. Love the introduction, and again, Furiosa, her introduction to the movie, I think is key. Again, just the way visually it looks. I can keep going back to that because in every scene, and every person that's in it, like it's something that is, and talking about Quentin too, and that whole being able to just be able to have fun, on a set like this, no matter all these, they sound, I'm sure in the book it explains probably, was there any complaints from the actors on the set?
Yeah, but it wasn't really towards it was more towards, the star.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get to that. But the
Yeah.
thing about it is again, you know, sometimes it's cool just to ham it up in a movie. So it looks like that's what everybody was doing up until this point.
Yeah. But, I mean, from what I have read, they enjoyed it, but there was a lot of mixed personalities. That's what happens in
Oh yeah.
the film.
I mean,
Um,
yeah. I mean, to get off topic for 1 second, just today I read that there was arguments on the set of Tu Wong Fu between Patrick Swayze and John Leguizamo. Leguizamo liked to go off character and do like some improvise where Swayze wanted it to be straight, like from the script. And one day they realized that they were yelling at each other, but they were like fully dressed, like in drag. Can you imagine that? I mean, but
that'd be pretty funny. Danny
that's
Dalton,
what it
they
is. And
kicked him
in
in
a lot of these
Dalton.
movies, mixed personalities sometimes happen.
Then he probably like super kicked him like Dalton to shut him up. I like John Leguizamo, but yeah, I saw
Well,
that
unless
too.
was he Clown from Spawn,
Yeah,
and then it's like Dalton versus Clown from Spawn.
Violator.
There you go.
So then we cut to Furiosa going on her trip to the bullet farm. She's attacked by raiders. And during this attack, she's also found out to be a traitor. She's actually stolen the wives of Immortan Joe. One of the caretakers there tries to shoot him, which I always thought was hilarious that she just blasted him instead of waiting too long until he runs up to her. And he calls his war party. He calls his people to go and get them ready to get the traitor. The war boys is what he calls. The opening scene you showed when we first started the development, which is of the guitar players. The flame shooting guitarist is an Australian artist, musician Sean Happ, better known as Iota. In an interview with Vice in 2013, he said the guitar weighed 132 pounds and shot real gas powered flames, which he controlled by using the whammy bar, which is crazy. And they're also like suspended, those characters. They're also blind, is what George Miller came out and said. And then we get into, the war boys to prepare themselves to go into battle, ready to sacrifice their lives for Immortan Joe. The war boys spray their lips and teeth with a silver substance, very much like common spray paint. Both the war boys and Immortan Joe speak about this as though it is a religious ritual, saying that it will allow them to enter the gates of Valhalla, shiny in chrome. However, in May 2015 interview with Crave Online, actor Hugh Keys Bryan, who plays Immortan Joe, said that this practice, which the war boys think is purely ritualistic, actually involves the inhalation, which is inhaling, of a very euphoric drug that keeps the war boys high and suicidally devoted to Immortan Joe. Another clue to the spray's narcotic properties is the fact that chrome and chroming are Australian slang terms for inhalant abuse. Writer-director George Miller said that he got the idea for this from Australian filmmaker David Bradbury's 1981 Vietnam documentary Frontline, in which Cambodian soldiers preparing for battle suspend small jade figurines of Buddha from their mouths with little straps. That's pretty crazy that much thought went into this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I always thought it was spray paint until I read this. Um, Also, it's cool is the vehicle driven by Immortan Joe, which is known as the Giga Horse. It's fully functional and was designed and constructed entirely from scratch for the film. Fitting for Immortan Joe, the design of stacked Coupe de Villes was intended to symbolize the power and status he wields. The Giga Horse was powered by dual supercharged Chevy 502 V8 engines linked together by a custom gearbox, feeding it into an Allison transmission. In this configuration, the Giga Horse produced over 1,200 horsepower and was capable of reaching 75 miles per hour. According to the actor who played Immortan Joe, the vehicle was his favorite on set and could be heard for miles when it was being driven. I think the vehicle looks badass when he drives off in it.
Oh yeah.
I think just that whole scene of Immortan Joe going towards Furiosa in his car, and the visual of his face with the mask painted and his white hair, like it just to me it's like it's creepy one, and it just looks badass. Like
Real cool.
visually awesome. So while Furiosa's getting chased by the Immortan Joe army, his war boys, we find that the character of Nux is basically having Mad Max as his blood bank, and they're going through a storm, a basic desert storm that he's chasing Furiosa in. Him and Max get into a tussle where he tries to blow up and kill himself, which explains the spraying of the mouth and trying to use the gasoline from his vehicle to blow up Furiosa as well as himself as he would go on to Valhalla. And Max is his blood bank, and Bloodward is like, no, I don't want to die. And he pulls his hand away before he drops the flare into the gasoline at this point. And Furiosa sees this and basically sideswipes them, and they go flying to hell. This scene I thought was pretty crazy, Tone, because Max had to be like really jacked up. He was on a chain during this scene, connected to Nux. It's incredible that he doesn't, end up with broken bones because of the way the car flips and the way he flies off. Like, what'd you think about it?
Oh, I mean, the action stunts in this movie are like to a T filmed again. Really, really awesome. And the scene shows that. Every single time in the movie, the big production pieces need to come to the front. They don't fail. I mean, really, which is, I think, I like the original movies, but I think this movie does that a little bit better, probably because of the scope that they get to work with, probably against the original scope.
Jack says the Giga Horse sounds like his Miata, which I think is great. the Jackmobile. The character of Nux, his makeup consisted of 8 silicone prosthetics, followed by airbrushing, clay application, and various levels of dirt. The makeup had to be applied 77 times, and it took 2 hours each time to apply it. Oh man, that's a lot of time to be put in for makeup, and I feel bad for the actor who played Nux there, Nicholas Hoult. But the scene where Nux flips the war rig to block the pass was filmed almost entirely using practical effects at the assistance of George Miller, who believed using CGI would ruin the film and models would be insufficient. The scene was filmed with master stunt driver Lee Adamson behind the wheel as the war rig was hydraulically launched into its side at full speed. Although the production team planned for multiple takes if the war rig failed to land in the right spot, the stunt was filmed flawlessly on the first and only take. Miller was initially alarmed while watching the footage, having seen the dummy representing Nux being partially crushed when the vehicle landed, and mistaking it for the driver Adamson, who was in the perspective cage on the other side. After filming the demise of the war rig, the doof wagon was filmed crashing into it from behind as depicted in the film. CGI was used for only some of the debris. So that whole scene was all practical, which is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, all those scenes are ridiculous as well. Tony just put up a picture, if you're listening to on pod, of when the characters on the poles of the war party that swing back and forth. In the final scene, they're more prevalent, but it's crazy how they, who the hell told them to do that? Like, how was that supposed to be a good idea? It's just ridiculous. That we'll get to that scene in a minute. But after this whole debris and battle, and Nux is, they flip out of the truck, it's destroyed. The war rig is stopped. It's after the sandstorm. They're they're washing off. The wives are washing off. Max picks up Nux because he's still changed to him and has to take him with him. And he walks up with a door. It's good. Door and Nux, and he walks over to Furiosa and the wives with his gun and basically asks them for water, not trusting them. And during this scene too, we also see them getting cut from the chastity belts, getting cut from all the wives, and we see that Furiosa doesn't have a real arm. She has a steel arm that was CGI. One of the few scenes in the film was CGI, and one of the few characters that have CGI. This leads to a battle between Furiosa and Max as she tricks him with the water and hits him with the water to the face, and then eventually the hose to the face. And during this fight, Tom Hardy actually suffered a broken nose during the filming with Charlize Theron, and she accidentally elbowed him because she was wearing a green cast at the time for the CGI, which is used for the graphics so they can remove her arm. There was also some friction between the two. George Miller and Charlize Theron didn't get along with Tom Hardy during film, and they both found him difficult to work with. Hardy would actually eventually later apologize to Miller at the film's Cannes premiere. And the Cannes press conference, Hardy apologized to George Miller for a reportedly complicated relationship between the star and the director during filming. He stated, "There was no way. I have to apologize because I got frustrated. There was no way George could have explained what he could see in the sand when we were out there. Because of the due diligence that was required to make everything safe and so simple, what I saw was a relentless barrage of complexities, simplified for this fairly linear story. I knew he was brilliant, but I didn't know how brilliant until I saw it. So my first reaction was, oh my God, I owe George an apology for being so myopic." Charlize Theron mentioned similar experiences where she had no idea what she was filming, up to the point where she would ask the director what the hell he was doing. In the end, seeing the finished film greatly exceeded her expectations as well. And Tony puts up a great shot of Max hanging on the war rig with the wives trying to grab him to pull him up, which you could see the cords connected to him for safety. It's an excellently shot movie. This whole, chase scene is it's a whole movie is just basically a chase scene. And after the fight with the wives, Max gains the trust of Furiosa, and she tells him she's going to take the girls to the Greenland, where the other mothers are. They're trying to we find out that they're trying to get away from Immortan Joe because Immortan Joe just breeds them for more war boys, and those are his favorites. They're basically his sex slaves. So he decides to go with them because he has nowhere else to go, and she tells him that Immortan Joe is not a good person, that she should just trust them. She's going to drop off the rig and they're going to get them to safety. When she goes to drop off the rig of gasoline to the people that she set up the agreement with, they betray her and start shooting at her. And her and Max basically shoot it the way out while Immortan Joe's coming behind, and they begin a firefight. This also leads to a very funny part as Nux is picked up by Immortan Joe to basically he is telling Immortan Joe he can shoot Furiosa. He actually first says he'll stab her in the spine, and Immortan Joe says no, shoot her, and so she can basically kill her, and gives him a gun. And he goes, "If you do this, I will carry you to Valhalla myself." Which I always thought was like, oh, so you're gonna kill him? That's what I thought. And then he sprays the chrome in his face to where Nux gets on top of the war rig that Furiosa's driving and then drops the gun. And Immortan Joe's like says something like, "Oh, incompetence." Like, so he kind of like loses faith in Nux, who loses faith in himself, and eventually becomes kind of a friend of this ragtag of wives and Mad Max and Furiosa. After this, they get away from Immortan Joe. And then we see the appearance of the Bullet Farmer, who is my favorite character in this film besides Immortan Joe. The bullet farmer is going to try to chase them, as also the person from Gas City is trying to chase them. He had a really unique vehicle by the name of the Peacemaker, which was considered the most dangerous and problematic vehicle on set. It was constructed by mating a Ripsaw tank chassis with a Valiant Charger body. Despite extensive development, the vehicle still had severe problems with braking and engine cooling. The original diesel engine was replaced with a water-cooled Merlin V8, which is itself replaced by a Chevrolet 502 V8 when the former was destroyed after ingesting sand on set. A complete redesign of the brake and cooling systems was required to make the vehicle usable on set. Like many of the vehicles used in the film, the Peacemaker was crushed after production concluded, and I'm pretty sure they were happy because it seems like it was a pain in the ass. What'd you think of the appearance of the Bullet Farmer, Tone?
Awesome. Again, these characters that they keep throwing you curveballs throughout the movie. As you stated, he's your favorite. He is also one of my favorites. Just a great all-around character, I think, addition.
Modeled after a postal truck, no doubt. Maybe Jack. Him and the person who runs Gas Town, the People Eater is what they call him. Both very, very strange looking characters. One of my favorite scenes of the film is when the bullet farmer pulls a bullet from his tooth. It's basically his teeth are made of bullets, and he pulls one out and puts it in a gun. And he drives like a bat of hell in the dark towards Furiosa and Max and the wives and Nux as they're trying to get the truck out of the sand. And when Furiosa shoots him, doesn't shoot him, but she shoots the light that he's using to try to find them in the darkness, and it shatters in his face. They cut to a scene of him telling one of his helpers, hold the flare closer to my face. And he's like, it's right in front of you, you don't see it. And he just starts screaming, going ape shit. And just starts shooting his gun ridiculously, like in all directions as they're driving forward, screaming. And even though they didn't show him being killed, I love the fact that Max is like, I'll take care of this. And he goes into the dark, and all you see is the explosion of this man's truck and somebody coming back covered in blood, carrying a bunch of weapons. And we find out it's Max. Like, I that's one of the, like, most people are like, oh, I wish they would have shown it. Like, I love how that transition was, that you didn't see him dying, but you see like him going ape shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then just him being gone, which I actually really, really like. For that film. It's like one of my favorite sequences of the film, that whole bullet farmer thing. We then find out as they go closer to the Greenland, there is no Greenland, but they do find the old mothers, the Viviani, as they're called. They're older women who lived on their own, and they escaped Morton Joe as well. They decide to help the wives and Furiosa and Max by thinking of an idea to actually circle back and take the Citadel while Joe was out with his war party and close it on them before he can get back. So they start driving around and going back to the Citadel. Joe realizes this, and this is where the final battle begins. This is where we see all those crazy guys on the pogo sticks and big, hanging in the rafters, jumping down. We see the battle of Max, the Viviani fighting, the women fighting to protect the wives, which is crazy because a lot of them are older. When 78-year-old Melissa Jaffer was asked why she took part in the film, she said, when the role came along, I thought, well, I won't get another chance like this before I die, and that's why I took it. It was absolutely wonderful. Most of the actresses who played the Viviani did their own stunts.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'm seeing two different things here. It's Vuvalini or Vuliani. If I'm saying it incorrect, I'm sorry, but I'm seeing two different things in my notes from two different sources. So, but the character of Megan Gale, if you don't know, is the Valkyrie. She's the one that shoots on the motorcycle, the black-haired member of the crew. She was supposed to live, but she became pregnant during production and had to leave the project early. So George Miller killed her off. The cool thing about her is she wears cross belts, and they are the same belts that Max wore in Beyond Thunderdome in 1985. The brass belt buckle has been covered or replaced. So it's kind of like a little ode back to the previous films, which I thought was kind of cool. Uh, One of the best scenes and the final scene is the death of Immortan Joe. And if you pause the film, you can clearly see his lower jaw is ripped off. What do you think of this whole final battle and chase, John?
It's like a grand finale at a fireworks show. You've already had a lot of awesome fireworks, and now it's just all coming at you. But I was sad about the death of Immortan Joe. It kind of reminds me of the very first movie I saw at the movie theater with my parents, Fievel, An American Tale, and I cried when Fievel at the end. But in this movie, I didn't cry, but I should have. But I liked all of this the way it was filmed. Thought it was really cool. And again, I didn't say it earlier, but Nicholas Hoult did a really good job when you look at a lot of his other roles. You know, again in this movie.
Yeah, he's excellent. Very underrated for the film too. Like he actually becomes a character that tugs at your heartstrings for this film. You know, you don't like him at first, and then he kind of grows on you, and you feel bad for when Nux dies. Spoiler alert! But I mean, we are doing a film breakdown. You know, it's and he does it trying to save them, which I thought was pretty crazy.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
well, I didn't really think he was going to have a family and a wife, you know, after all that huffing of the cans, you know. So he dedicated himself.
Yeah, also he was sick. Like they say he has a sickness and he's the shivers.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yep.
I cried in the theater at the end of the Follow That Bird when he didn't eat the bird. That's funny. But the last image is of Furiosa rising into Joe's citadel, Max having melted into the crowds. George Miller disclosed very early on I had Max going up to the top of the citadel with them, but Tom Hardy picked that up very early. Max would never go. He wasn't even remotely ready for that. We end on the idea of Furiosa and the others taking over all the resources. It asks the question, are they going to do any better? Which is, I guess, what we're going to see. I mean, Furiosa is a prequel. We kind of see what kind of person she is. But in terms of this film is a roller coaster ride from the beginning to the end. Lots of action, even when there's scenes where there's dialogue, there is continuous action going because when the characters are having a time to speak and have that dialogue with just them talking, they also have shots and cuts of the chase of the war party coming after them. So it's continuously movement, and I think it's awesome the way it's done. I think personally, I think this is the best Mad Max film. I know if you have a better connection to Thunderdome or the first one, I think they're all great. Thunderdome, I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't think it's horrible, but I think it's the weaker of the three. But I think, to be honest, like
movie.
It's very rare that in my opinion, one of the sequels can be at that level or outdo the originals. And this film, I think, does. It's like Terminator 2 to Terminator. Both are excellent films, and it's just one of those sequels that is like probably a great sequel. And this one, I think, is right up there. What do you think, Tom?
I definitely agree with everything besides you just doing a little slight on Beyond Thunderdome. But besides everything else, I think it was great.
I do like in Beyond Thunderdome, to be off topic for a minute. The character that is in the beginning, I forget his name at the top of my head. I haven't seen it in so long. But the character he's in Shrimp on the Barbie, and he's also the train man in the Matrix. But he's a character in part 2 as a person that saves the village as the hero. And then in part 3, he's an asshole. He's a totally different character.
Which again, it's like it shows that, you know, again, George Miller's like, okay, well, I like this guy, so let's make him this different character.
Yeah, and it's just so strange. Like, it always cracked me up.
I like the names of these characters. I mean, let's go to just real quick. If you go to Thunderdome, you Blaster is one of the characters' names.
Blaster.
Yeah, you know, you got him. You got the Master, the Collector, Iron Bar Bassie, Pig Killer, Blackfinger, Deal Good. Like, These are awesome names, man. Like to be sitting around and then get them to be put into a movie. I thought very awesome.
Oh, definitely. Even in this film, you
Yeah.
know, we
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of went through a
We went
important
through those
show.
names.
We have Colossus.
Bullet. Yeah, you just
The Bullet Farmer, the
yeah.
People Eater.
Yeah.
And the way that People Eater looks like he has some sexual perversions with his nipples. But this it's just I love the world that he creates. I do, and like I said, I do like the fact that Miller leaves the characters open for interpretation. I never seen so many people list it as a top 10 movie ever. Yeah, and I could totally see why, Brian. Let's just go straight into the critical reception tone so we can
Let's do it.
discuss a little bit more.
You know that fat cocksucker says I look like the Shah of Iran?
Who does? Tony. I never got that at all.
I love Conan.
Oh, what's hilarious is I didn't start thinking of that clip until we were actually doing the show. So I clipped it and everything and got it ready when we were doing it because I had to put it on there. Because when they did that and the movie came out, it's a whole little clip. You go on YouTube and see it. There's like an intro where he's like, "Oh, Conan, you want to go for a ride?" And then he like goes in the car and stuff like that. But that just shows again the reach of the movie that even Conan did a whole little piece on it when it came out.
Yeah, totally. The movie had a budget of 150 million and made 380 million at the box office, so it was a financial success. It's the first Mad Max film to be nominated for Oscars, winning 6 of them. One for best film editing, best production design, best costume design, best makeup and hairstyling, best sound mixing, and best sound editing. Miller was also nominated but did not win. And the film is widely acclaimed as the best of the series and it has a 97% rated fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. And fellow guest of the show and friend of the show, Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times, gave the film 4 out of 4 stars and wrote that Theron and Hardy are one of the best action duels ever in one of the best action movies ever. The film has a score of 8.6 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes in terms of rating. I think that is awesome. It's crazy that the film is, widely hailed and with, respectfully, it should be. I think this film is awesome in terms of the way it looks, the story, the way it flows, the action is nonstop. Like I said, it's a roller coaster ride from beginning to end, Tone.
I agree. Can agree more with the words you just shared.
Mhm. The film also spawned comics by Vertigo, and Tom Hardy came out and said he would sign on for 3 more Mad Max films in 2015. So we got 3 more coming. With the kind of like the relationship between Theron and Hardy, we don't know. They're still up in the air if she's going to return. So we don't know, but Hardy will be in the future Mad Max installments. With the release of Furiosa coming out, which is a prequel with Anna Taylor-Joy as Furiosa and Chris Hemsworth as the villain in the film. I think he played. Is he Chris? No, Chris Hemsworth's not Morton Joe.
No.
But
Which at first I was thinking, is he like no, but he's not.
yeah, and in the comics they actually explain the Bullet Farmer, why he's the Bullet Farmer. They explain why Morton Joe's the way Morton Joe is. They explain why the People Eater is the People Eater, which I think is pretty cool. Which is, I think that I love the fact that, like I said, Miller gave that open to interpretation for his characters. All his characters and all his films, the toe cutter, nobody knows why he is the humongous. Why is he deformed? Nobody knows why those people were like the way they were. And it kind of leaves the you open for interpretation, which brings us to our fan theories, Tone. I have one fan theory, it's a long one, but it was probably one of the best ones I saw. So this is a fan theory from Fenstra on our good place of Reddit. I will link it in the notes so you can click on it and look at it. It starts off by saying, so last night I watched Mad Max Fury Road for a second time. And I think I figured out a lot of things about Morton Joe society. I'm just using the movie for it as it is. The wiki is questionable at best. He says, these are some points he puts out. Morton Joe's illness is caused by radiation from the water and oil wars. In the opening monologue, we hear news reports about the water and oil wars and see footage of nuclear explosions. We can assume that Morton Joe got at least some of the medals he earned by fighting in those wars. We can then assume that Morton Joe has been severely irradiated, can't know if I said that correctly, which causes his various diseases. Joe is covered in boils, and yes, he is. The two people we know to be his sons are disabled. One is an obese little person, and the other is obviously cognitively impaired and always on some sort of life support machine, but neither of them have boils. This may seem obvious, but it becomes important later on. The War Boys are crazy because of disease. All of the War Boys have some of the lumps that Nux named Larry and Barry. Nux says something along the lines of, if Larry and Barry don't get me, the night fears will. We can then conclude that many War Boys have died because of the weird lumps and whatever night fears may be. Additionally, we hear the War Boys live refer to their half-lives. We hear this at least, this is how he wrote it, is where he wrote it's kind of weird. We hear this at least twice, once when Morton Joe is sending them out and calls them, my half-life, War Boys. And once when one of the breeders says Nux is just a war boy at the end of his half-life. So with all that, we can assume that the War Boys have a terminal disease which causes deadly lumps on the skin. Night fears also suggest that they are frequently have night terrors. These two things come together to produce a person who avoids sleep, has a failing body, and constantly has death on the horizon, which makes them all batshit crazy. Morton Joe is the father of the War Boys. Both the War Boys and Joe suffer from the same disease. Nobody else we see suffers from the disease, so we know that it's something that's not just going around. When the doctor is cutting open the pregnant breeder's stomach, the first thing he says was that it was a healthy one. Then he informs Joe that it was a boy. If Joe is looking for an heir, wouldn't gender be important than health? Not if Joe has 100 of children that are afflicted with the disease and just needed someone who wasn't sick. This also explains the questions of where all the women are. They are all the breeders that Joe uses to make War Boys. He knows they aren't likely to give him heirs, so he uses them for War Boy factories. This also explains why Joe treats them better than the commoners. Any thoughts?
I'm sorry. Thought I was at a Pink Floyd concert. That was amazing. Honestly, that was actually really, really, really in depth. And honestly, I got a lot of mental images. I like it. I like that one. That might be one of the favorite ones that you've ever done because it was really deep and really, really it made sense to me.
I think it made sense. I don't think all the War Boys are his kids because I think
not the kids part. I think I was looking more of like why he is the way he is.
Oh yeah.
Stuff. Yeah. But like you're right, that part. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Everyone kids. No.
And I could see him looking for an heir too. Like
yeah.
But I mean, that's really deep in thought, and that's the way he wrote it. It's very long, but shout out to Fenstra. Fenstra's his name. Yeah,
Nice.
Fenstra. On Reddit. This was written 9 years ago, so
Hey.
I'm pretty sure more has come to light in the story, but it's an interesting little theory there.
It's really cool. Real quick, is just by looking through some of the, the Furiosa, like the People Eater, is going to be in It's in Furiosa.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's cool to see like even a Morton Joe, like what's that character going to look like in this prequel? Is he going to even be more crazier than he was in Fury Road? I'm curious to see that, and that's why this movie is going to be huge for us to go and see.
Yes. Also, Rictus Erectus is also in the film.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, I was going to say that earlier.
Yeah, he comes back. Is the Bullet Farmer in it? I don't see.
I did not see him because he was who I was looking for, but you never know because they only got like 6 people here. So
yeah, I'm really interested in This film gets released the 15th. Maybe you do. No, it's the 23rd, 24th. We should go see this.
We shall.
We will make a date for it. Fenstra is the Ancient Aliens guy's burner. It might be, man. It might be. So that's our deep dive into the Mad Max Fury Road film. I know I threw a lot at you guys. Let us know if you like the way we do these film deep dives. If you want us to change something up, just let us know. We're always open for suggestions, just trying to get the show better. But with that tone, let's go into what's coming soon. Once I get the thing playing up here. Where are you, my friend? Here we go.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Coming soon.
Próximamente.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. We got next week. We're gonna go back down the hatch to Baseball Town. Except we're gonna go the other way. We're gonna go to the worst movies that baseball has ever produced. It's gonna be a good one. What do you think?
I'm really excited for that. It's kind of funny because Michael Cotton, who listens to our show as a Cubes fan on Twitter, awesome show, does a Sun Ranto show, a Cubs show. Awesome guys over there, Danny Rocket, him and Infield Fly Girl. They do the show. Good dudes and women. But he was like, I really like the fact you guys did baseball movies. I was waiting for it. And he said, I was hoping you guys would do one about bad baseball movies. And I was kind of had the idea in my head to do it. And that's why I'm like, do you want to do that? Because that's why I put the eyes out, because I was thinking about doing something like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when you were like, what do you want to do? And then you came back with that, I was like, yeah, because it kind of gives it like you got a week in between with this one. And now we're going back to the flip side. It's going to be awesome.
Brian's already putting his request out there. So we will be doing that. And Tone, you brought up a good point. Cotton also mentioned, he loves the old format and likes that we go back and forth from it. And we have talked about going back and forth between the new format that we do now and the old format. So since next week is going to be a Sunday show as the Sox are in town, and we'll probably do 2:00 again.
Yeah.
But when we do the offsetting Friday shows, we're going to go back to the old format because one, it's easier for us to do, and two, it's kind of nice to switch it up and go back and forth between the two, and it's fun.
Yeah,
with the sound. So you'll get sound clips, you'll get film, a little more film trivia in each one. Not as much film breakdown, but you'll get the little stuff you love, and we might have some else little segments coming out for that as well.
You're even gonna get me upsetting Brian when I tell him I kind of like Trouble with the Curve, but we'll wait till next week to get in. Wait till next week to get in.
We definitely will, and Brian will probably spam us. What the hell are you talking about? But that's what's coming soon. So be sure to check this out. If you have films that you want to be on that list, they might make it up there. So hit us up on Twitter at Lil Yumper or at the Sugar Baggy. You have a hook up on music.
That's it. No more texts. I just did it there.
Let us know at the show pod on Twitters, and let us know what movies you would like to see on there, and maybe they might show up. But that's what's coming soon, Tone. And now it's time to get into the Sugar Baggies soundtrack pick of the week. The Sugar Baggies soundtrack pick of the week.
Jackknife!
All right, tonight I am going with just a specific song that pops up in quite a lot of things, and that is Spill the Wine by Eric Burdon and War. I was sitting in school this week in a class, and I was, Remember the Titans was on, and Spill the Wine came on in that movie, and for some reason my mind took me right to Boogie Nights for the clip that I just showed you right there, and then I thought to myself, this movie song's been in a lot. It's also been in Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo. It's also been in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the episode That's No Lady.
That's what I think about it. That's when Uncle Phil sings it.
Yep. And then it's also been in Dexter, and it's also been an episode of Shameless. So in my mind, another cool thing I thought for some of these shows is try to pick a song and see how many different things it's been in. Spill the Wine's been in 6 things. Boogie Nights being, that scene is incredible. But yeah, that's my pick of the week here. Spill the
Awesome
Wine.
pick. Yeah, the Uncle Phil singing it and dancing part makes me laugh because it's just random. It goes into randomly, but great pick, Tom. Great pick.
Thank you.
Mailman Jack says he's just waiting for Superman versus Muhammad Ali to be made.
We're getting that production. I told you.
Yeah, I just want to also go into a little thing that I usually make a video, but I just did not have time today to do so. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, Tone, and tell everybody that we do have a new merch item that dropped. It's the show podcast OnlyFans, as we call it, based off the OnlyFans design. It's at our Sadistic Penguin Studios merch shop on Big Cartel. Sweet shirt. I designed it. Let me know what you guys think. Here's a bigger picture of it. Basically, it's play off the OnlyFans. I know we had the Pornhub one before that we played off, and this one's another play off that. See if you guys like it. Let me know. Its prices will be shipped out to you guys. It's $20 to $25, depending on size, and the actual fitting of the shirt is actually really comfortable, and they don't shrink.
I can only say enough, and I'm not saying it because it's our shirt either. I've got lots of concert shirts that don't have this type of cotton. I mean, I don't. Well, talk to you after the show, but it's amazing cotton, and honestly, it's really worth it. So check it out.
Yeah, so swing over to the sadisticpenguin.bigcartel.com website to get it. And that's going to be my only commercial plug for tonight. But shout out to Mailman Jack and everybody who joined us in the comments. Brian and everybody else. Sam, that's some guy named Tony B. He joined us too.
He's some fool.
But thanks everybody for watching, and we'll be back next week with some baseball films that suck. So take it easy, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the At the Show podcast, a Sadistic Penguin Studios production.
Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?